Global Dialogue for Peace. Islam and the West, Navigating the Way Forward. Presented by a panel of academics, thinkers and experts from around the world. Why are these two civilizations in a perpetual state of conflict?
A philosophical concept that gave us colonialism. When it came to Africa, it enslaved Africans. When it went to Asia, it developed this notion that 𝗪𝗺 𝗙𝗪 calls Orientalism. And now that it encounters the Muslim world, it gives us a new set of concepts that is based on what John Esposito so eloquently describes as Islamophobia. It has given us a situation in which the anger that was generated by colonialism and became extremism has suddenly become the war on terror.
A rise of the far right across the US and Europe, okay? In countries that don't have Muslims, you have, or very few Muslims, you have a high rate of Islamophobia.
But again, we have the problem, of course, the West is concerned about Islamic resurgence, and that is not a secret, of course.
Can an accommodation between Islam and the West take place for peaceful coexistence?
I believe are merely symptoms, as big as they are, as critical as they are, but they are merely symptoms of the essential issue upon which we can avoid a civilizational clash, or we can actually perpetuate one. And that is the issue of our values. What are our values? What are our values? Are those values aspects for which we are willing to live and die, to fight and to create peace, and also to ensure that others live by, develop, and enhance? This is no zero-sum game.
There is a lot of Islam in the West, and there is a lot of Western culture inside the Muslim world. And there is a lot of common ground. So when we say Islam in the West, it does not mean that the relationship is always marked by hostility. There is a lot of common ground and a lot of compassion and empathy also.
Are we similarly besieged as Muslims today? I think certainly intellectually and theologically, we may be facing some inertia. We are not going backwards necessarily, but we are also not going forwards. Secondly, what we have is challenges from within our own ranks. People, Muslims, who hijack the religion for the purposes of extremism and dominate the public perception of what Islam and Muslims are about. The third one is that governance is not by the democracy of Anwar Ibrahim or the ability to navigate rights like 𝗪𝗺, but by the authoritarians within the Muslim community. What we have is Islamophobia.
Why is the West concerned about Islamic resurgence in Muslim countries?
Insidious attempt through the academia, which I think John is an expert in the subject, but he's also a victim of the efforts to undermine and attack and demonize any scholar deemed to be rather sympathetic or trying to give an objective assessment of Islam without prejudice.
When to Islamophobic writers, Islamophobic organizations, then social media. And there's a kind of cross-pollination and international connections, which you can see, for example, when you look at the Norwegian and New Zealand terrorists.
They wield a broadsword and cut everyone who's different. We need to say, who are the populist, right-wing, evangelical extremists that drive this rhetoric of Islamophobia, that drive this war on terror, that drives the demonization of Muslims?
The matter has not been somewhat resolved. I mean, Huntington is, of course, an extreme exception, but with Trump and Trumpism, you have sense, you see this obsessive revival of this anti-Islamic and Islamophobia.
Islamophobia has grown incrementally, influenced by the Iranian Revolution, 9/11, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and their violence and terror in the Muslim world and globally.
How can the current world order be made more pluralistic to accommodate genuine concerns of the Muslim world?
We may be hasty in wanting to give a message where there is not the basis of trust yet. And so how do we build the basis of trust where our gender relations are sorted out, where we are not sectarian amongst ourselves, when we demonstrate how we can confer rights on each other and on others?
In political realm, the issue of legitimacy, issue of accountability, of good governance, of rule of law.
The main characteristic that all civilizations are built upon is their ability, their inherent ability to promote and to advance a set of values. And those set of values not only marked intellectually or culturally, but actually practiced.
How can misconceptions be removed on both sides to promote better understanding?
We need to understand the West as a philosophical construct if we are going to diffuse the binary inherent in the idea of Islam and the West, and if we are going to diffuse the aggression that has built up between these entities.
As a Muslim in a Muslim majority country, I take this as a major challenge, that the internal dynamics within Muslim societies, a government or leadership that must be legitimate, that respect the rule of law.
It is merely a symptom of a greater illness. And that illness is our failure as human beings, whether we be in the West or whether we be Muslims or whoever we be, to actually abide by the very values that our civilizations perpetuate and propagate.
Global Dialogue for Peace is an ongoing initiative with more webinars coming soon.